Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. It has been a minute, as they say. I was busy with a political podcast with some other friends and kind of put this podcast on hold for a while. And I'm getting back at it. Start interviewing some friends again and getting to know what's going on in the world out there and introducing my friends to other friends in this world of podcasting. Today we have Matt Sistrunk with us, and I met him through some other friends, and I started talking with him and said, hey, this would be a fun podcast to bring him on and to learn a little bit more about what he's been doing. Matt and I have a similar background in politics. We were both active in the Ron Paul movement years ago, knowing he had a chance to make a big difference in this world. And like I was involved in politics before that, and I was election judge and precinct chair back when Bush was governor in Texas. But I saw someone in Ron Paul going, hey, different people who I agree with, who normally I wouldn't, we all have the same thing in common going, hey, this guy's going to make a difference. And he's exposing things that need to be exposed that no one else is bringing to the attention like they should. And of course, the whole media machine was out to get him and to squash him and to put Ron Paul delegates on bus and get them lost and things like that, or doing antics in the national scene where they go to the wrong room, go, oh, sorry, we didn't call you back, and realize the machine was out against them. And it's easy to say, we'll never make it. This is over. They're always going to be out to get us. They're never going to listen to us. The corrupt machine will always be involved. Or we can step back and go, okay, wait a second. There is hope for the future. It might not come as fast as we had hoped, but people like Ron Paul lit a fire under many, many, many people who got off the sidelines and started trying to make a difference. I was up to go as a national delegate to during Ron Paul when he was running, to cast a vote for Romney. And there's no way I'm ever going to vote for that guy. So I did not go nationally for it. I'm like, I'm sorry, not going to vote for that fraud. And thankfully, not thankfully, everyone can see what a fraud he is now. But anyway, I digress. Matt Sistrunk has written a book recently, and he got involved in trying to make the world a better place. And I like to meet people like that. I have not met him personally, though we will meet soon, I hope. But in the meantime, we're the remote world of podcasting, and through some live video podcasting options, I can get to a conversation with him. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you involved in? I kind of briefly introduced that, but what got you involved in the past and where you are today, and what your hopes are for the future? That'll be kind of the whole conversation. But tell us some about yourself, and thank you.
All righty. Well, originally I'm from Akron, Ohio. Graduated from Bookville High School in 1977, enlisted in the Army. I was an electronic technician in military intelligence for about 2 years before going to West Point Prep School to play football. And I went to the academy and I studied Russian and German along with playing football there. I graduated in '84 and came to El Paso, Texas, to Fort Bliss as a young second lieutenant in air defense artillery for Hawk missiles. I was here for about 6 months. Went to Germany for 3 years from '85 to '88. And I was a tactical control officer, a platoon leader, and a battery executive officer. Came back to El Paso in '88 to attend the officer advanced course here at Fort Bliss. And after that, I worked in the Directorate of Combat Developments for about almost 2 years before taking command of a Hawk training battery. And I was in command for another 20 months. I got out of the service in '92. And since then, I've been doing all kinds of things. I went into financial services. In 1994, I started working with Smith Barney, a big Wall Street firm that no longer exists. It got gobbled up by some other Wall Street firms. And a bunch of different name changes. But during that time from 94 to 98, about midway through it, I started learning some stuff outside the box, outside the SEC regulated box that I was conditioned or trained to work in. And I started learning some things about international banking, finance, about the IRS, the Federal Reserve, the US dollar, and I became very disturbed I actually started selling that information in 97 part-time while I was still working at Smith Barney. And I attended a couple of offshore seminars that I was actually selling as part of our educational package. And I heard about this U.S. congressman named Ron Paul at both of these offshore seminars in Cancun and Aruba in 1998. And I was fascinated by this U.S. congressman who was basically whistleblowing on our government. And I had never seen anything like this. I learned about the creature from Jekyll Island. Actually got to meet G. Edward Griffin, dined right next to him.
Nice.
David Icke got him to sign my book. And there was just this amazing cast of liberty-minded people, activists in these offshore seminars. And so I got to the point where I could not continue as a financial consultant with a clear conscience, knowing what I knew and feeling as though we were basically trained to take advantage of what people did not know about the dollar, about the IRS, about the Federal Reserve. And so I decided to go into business marketing truth. That's not a good idea when people don't want to hear the truth, especially when they have to pay for it. So it was a very bumpy ride, but I made it through. I don't regret one bit. It was a very character building experience. And fast forward to today, once I learned that Ron Paul was actually running for president, this gentleman that I had learned about 9 years prior, in 2007, I just decided to get active in politics, and I became a precinct chair, a county delegate, state delegate, and a national delegate alternate to the 2008 Republican National Convention. I attended the Rally for the Republic, when we got a little bit of time off from the National Convention, and I was fascinated by the number of people that Ron Paul mobilized as a catalyst for a positive change in the country. And it was just very exciting to be a part of that original group of Tea Party people, us Tea Party OGs. So in 2012, it was a much more, let's just say that Ron Paul gained a lot of traction over those 4 or 5 years. And he was really in a position to win a brokered convention in 2012. But as you know, they basically dismantled his delegation on national television in front of everybody, shamelessly, unapologetically. And at that point, I was pretty much done with politics because I knew, like you said, they will not allow an honorable man in the White House. It's just that simple. They have to put someone in there who is compromised, who can be controlled or whatever. And so I decided to take my substance, my time, talent, treasure, and technology and relationships in a different direction where we could actually make a positive difference without censorship and without central control, without central corruption. And that's where the decentralized community started to emerge, really marked by the creation of Bitcoin in 2008. And it actually started mining in 2009. And all of a sudden, we had an alternative to the US dollar as far as an honest monetary technology that people could actually trust to store value. Millions of eyes on this blockchain, this truth technology. And we could actually build a new economy that was going to be in parallel with this old centralized economy. And as you know, right now it's booming because where Bitcoin started out as fractions of a penny back in 2009, 2010, it's now, I guess, right around close to $70,000 a coin again.
Please tell me you bought a bunch of coins back then.
I wish, man. I could just, every time I think about
I'm like,
man,
please tell me. I want to know.
And like I heard about Bitcoin back in 2010.
Yeah.
I was working in the car business at the time, and I would leave the car lot with a bunch of cash and spiffs, and I could have easily dropped $100 into Bitcoin in 2010, and I'd be a billionaire by now. But a lot of people are saying that. Hindsight is 2020. But it's not too late because after Bitcoin, a lot of technologically superior cryptocurrencies have emerged on the scene. And Ethereum, for instance, is now basically making smart contracts possible. And so we have newer blockchain projects that are using EVM, Ethereum virtual machine language, so that they can actually work with smart contracts. Super fast, super inexpensive, very practical for doing business worldwide. And so this is emerging as the new mainstream. And you know that when Wall Street embraces blockchain technology like they did back in January of 2024, when all of these exchange traded funds were approved by the SEC, now you really have to pay attention. Or those who had been ignoring it all these years, they're now paying attention. But the problem is you don't want an ETF any more than you want a Federal Reserve note. Okay, an ETF is not Bitcoin. A Federal Reserve note is not the gold that used to back the US dollar. You want real Bitcoin. You don't want a central bank digital currency knockoff of Bitcoin. Okay, the whole deal is about decentralized finance. That's the new paradigm that we must embrace, become a part of, spread, and benefit from, benefit our loved ones from. It's all about decentralized finance. In decentralization, there is freedom. In centralized finance, there is control, and we don't want to be controlled. So basically in 2014, I started a new, entity called Love Coffee Hour, and it was designed to soften the message, because the message of economic tyranny is very hard for people to swallow, right? And so what we wanted to do was soften the message by just basically breaking down people's defenses with a very positive approach. And that's basically what Love Coffee Hour is designed to do and has done over the last 10 years. Love Coffee Hour has about 20,000 followers all over the world, and it's comprised of small businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, coffee plantations, wineries, you name it, any type of small business, chefs, whatever value a person can create, produce, and deliver to society is represented in the followers of Love Coffee Hour. And so the whole idea behind Love Coffee Hour is to get the world coffee culture accepting real money, gold, silver, and cryptocurrency in a way that makes us, let's just say, less vulnerable to central control. It's an educational process, but it has to be softened by relationship building. And that's the whole purpose of the coffee aspect. Coffee is a very diplomatic beverage. You know, when you think about how people all over the world drink coffee, and you know, they build relationships, they have conversations, they solve problems, they do business or whatever. People who don't even like coffee go to coffee shops. And so in some way, shape, or form, about 80% of the world's population is touched by coffee. So Love Coffee Hour is like the worldwide ministry for real money, kind of in an indirect way. But we also started a local version of Love Coffee Hour. It's kind of like a microcosm of it, with the same intention, but more geared toward El Paso businesses to accept gold, silver, and cryptocurrency. And that entity is El Paso City of Gold. And so El Paso City of Gold and Love Coffee Hour both fall under the Slipstream ministerial banner. Slipstream is a short word that shortens a long acronym: Servant Leaders Leveraging Love with Effective Ecclesia Economic Action for the Mission. And that mission is the Great Commission as inspired by the Great Commandment. Now, I'm not going to start preaching to you. A lot of people know what that
coming
means.
Close.
Right?
You're walking that fine line.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to stop
so-
right there with the Great Commission and Great Commandment. But
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm ready to answer your question.
So Slipstream, before we get into Slipstream, I guess back up on the Love Coffee Hour. Was Love Coffee Hour started by you, or was it a group of people? Or I remember the Ron Paul Revolution. They had the Revolution,
right,
and they had the LOVE, backwards flipped on there. Was that the kind of the idea behind saying, let's all gather in love? Let's go take this movement of people wanting to make a change and realizing we're up against a machine and realize that the one who created this world is bigger than the stupid machine?
That's a good question. Love Coffee Hour is actually the third iteration of a name that started out to market a particular brand of coffee. In January of 2014, I started Organo Gold for Liberty to market Organo Gold coffee on Twitter. Yeah. Okay. And so Organo Gold coffee is instant, healthy coffee. It didn't take me long to lose interest in marketing instant, healthy coffee on a world stage because you have a lot of coffee snobs who aren't interested in instant, healthy coffee. So I became a lot more fascinated with the world coffee culture. Okay. That is so sophisticated and so diverse and so prevalent worldwide. So I changed the name from Organo Gold for Liberty to Liberty Coffee Hour, again, in the freedom spirit, right?
Yep.
And so Liberty Coffee Hour came about around February of 2014, and liberty sounds a lot like libertarian, right? So there's kind of like a political connotation with that that I wanted to lose to become more appealing to more people worldwide. So Liberty Coffee Hour morphed into Love Coffee Hour on March 5th of 2014. So Love Coffee Hour has since then been making friends and just loving on people worldwide. And that's what we do. We basically build relationships by promoting people's content for free. And it's just a really disarming way to meet people and to hopefully have them read my posts and my content. And some people will actually pick up on gold, silver, and cryptocurrency, and others will not. But
that's true.
It's been a slow process, but
So reading your content, what do you mean by that? Is it like on Twitter? Are we writing pages? Are you writing books? How do they read your content, and how do they team up with other people to try to boost something like the Love Coffee Hour and their community? That's two kind of questions.
Yeah, Twitter, which is now X, has a media tab where you can actually upload media. You can upload videos, or you can upload articles, or whatever you want. And so a lot of the media that I upload has to do with gold, silver, cryptocurrency, and freedom-related issues, right? Okay. Not necessarily coffee. Some coffee, but, it goes in a lot, in many different directions from coffee. So coffee is kind of like the icebreaker, if you will. Yeah. And then from there, we can go into different directions. But there's been a lot of organic growth of Love Coffee Hour over the years. No real focused SEO effort, search engine optimization, marketing, have not done that yet. Plan to do it sometime, but it's just.
What's your goals for it then, for Love Coffee Hour?
Basically, the goal is to gather people worldwide. No specific number. Let's say 1 million people, right? Who are doing business with gold, silver, and cryptocurrency in a way that makes them untouchable by centralized finance. That's the goal. And I would say we are approaching that slowly. I want to do it more quickly, which is why we're on this podcast.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So between Love Coffee Hour and El Paso City of Gold doing the same thing on a smaller scale, we can at least get the idea out there, because it's an idea, right? And no army can stop an idea whose time has come.
That's right.
You know that
I
quote.
do. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Heard it many times.
Right. So that's
you talked
what
about
we want to do.
You talked about mainstream versus slipstream. Slipstream being to what is your? We talked one time about the mainstream and your top thought on who the mainstream is and what are we going up against in the mainstream. So what do they represent and who are they?
The mainstream is very establishment, very much controlled by central powers, powers above governments, powers who actually control governments. And we can go back hundreds of years and just look at one very significant example. When you look at the birth of our Federal Reserve Bank, you can trace its history all the way back to Europe in the 1700s with the Rothschild banking dynasty, and how that entire power center was focused on profiting from financing both sides of wars that they would create basically to profit from. And so you had a situation where people really didn't have problems with each other. They were just basically doing what they were told to do by higher powers who had something to gain from their warfare, right? And so when you look at the mainstream, you look at what has been impacted by the elite money that has come from the Federal Reserve. You're talking about buying influence in mainstream media, buying influence in government, buying government, controlling government, influencing what is preached from the pulpit in churches. Okay, what is taught in schools from kindergarten through college. So everywhere you go, you see the impact of the mainstream, which is centrally controlled, influenced, and intended for the benefit of an elite few at the expense of the many who are operating in the mainstream, unwittingly contributing to their own enslavement, right? So slipstream undoes that in a way that is somewhat similar to how we have become enslaved, but it undoes it by giving financial incentive to our freedom as opposed to our enslavement. Okay, so we have entire industries built upon our enslavement in media, in finance. I can just go on and on and on, talking about the industries that benefit from central control, government. So what we want to do is give financial incentive to people doing business with each other at a grassroots level with real money. Okay, that's kind of a new concept. Bitcoin has basically accelerated it. But remember, at one time, the U.S. dollar was actually backed by gold, and it hasn't been since 1971.
1970s, yeah.
Yeah, because of that central control, that influence that Nixon used to take the dollar off the gold standard, and it gave the Federal Reserve pretty much carte blanche to start printing dollars out of thin air, and that's why everything costs so much these days.
I remember, I think it was Ron Paul talking about gold, and he gives the analogy of back 2,000 years ago, you can take a gold coin and go buy a nice toga and a belt and some sandals. And nowadays, the gold is still worth something, but you can take your gold and go buy a nice suit and some a shirt and a belt and some shoes. And it's the same. It's like it stayed the same. It's not controlled by government. You talk about mainstream. I was replying to someone on X, I think, talking about how the mainstream is corrupt and they're funding both sides of the aisle and both sides of war. And I'll give an example of Prescott Bush, who was the grandfather of W. Bush, funded Hitler and was funding both sides of the war. And they're like, oh, no, it's not. And I keep on telling people in the other podcast I'm on, you're being played. You're being played. This is a old, don't look at the left hand, just look at the right hand. The people who run the mainstream, and it's not just mainstream media, those are all there as well. But your case, the mainstream, who's controlling and writing the narrative, those people
Absolutely.
are up to no good. And they have been for a long time.
Long time.
Hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, yeah, do they care about us? Not in the least, a little bit.
Mm-mm.
They don't. So I hate to break it to you. You're not important to them at all.
Right.
But those listening to this podcast, there are many people out there in this world who are like you, going, "Wait a second, the emperor's not wearing clothes," and I say, "Welcome aboard."
Yeah.
This is the find someone like a Love Coffee Hour and support them, or support a local business, or support local people who are trying to make a difference in this world, because we need that. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
we'll continue to go down this dark path of controlled mainstream crap. So I'll get off my soapbox. But yes, I agree with you, and that's awesome. Okay, so you talked about mainstream. Then slipstream is that like a sailing term or a shipping term? Is that where it came from? The slipstream of the wind flowing back behind. How did you? Yeah.
Slipstream is a very appropriate descriptive word that talks about how we, as the new economy, can influence the old economy. The new economy being the real money economy that is benefiting from true value storage, benefiting from our working with each other, doing business with each other, the solid store of value in gold, silver, and cryptocurrency. As we do business with each other and build this new economy, we're going to prosper, and we're going to demonstrate fruit of the Spirit that is very attractive to people in the centralized world economy. Okay?
Yeah.
And so when you think of slipstream, I want you to think of a force that is behind a rotating propeller or a thrusting jet engine. And it's also the force that pulls one object along behind another object, as in NASCAR.
Okay.
You're familiar with NASCAR.
Like drafting.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So when that trailing car drafts the leading car, it's actually drafting in the slipstream of the lead car. And that slipstream is providing lower air resistance, allowing the trailing car to accelerate past the leading car, right? And so I want you to think of the lead car as the new economy that is prospering and benefiting from fruit of the Spirit and just helping people, a benevolent cooperation from the bottom up, as opposed to a selfish competition from the top down, okay? Yeah. Slipstream is a very attractive force, and our prosperity and our fruit of the Spirit, our benevolent actions, our radical generosity are very attractive to the world centralized economy that's being ripped off with fiat currency and central bank digital currency and centralized control. When you think of people who have dollars in the bank and they actually think they have money in the bank, right? First of all, a dollar is not money. And if it's in the bank, it's not theirs.
It's not yours.
It's the bank's, right?
It's the bank's.
And most depositors
they might give it to you, they might not.
Right, exactly. And they will until they don't anymore. And they can decide that anytime, because literally and legally, a U.S. dollar in a U.S. bank is the property of the bank. Okay? That is legislated in Dodd-Frank legislation, and the depositor is an unsecured creditor of the bank, and a lot of people will not find that out until it's too late to do anything about it. So Slipstream offers a very attractive alternative to fake money. When we can transfer that value out of a U.S. bank, out of a U.S. dollar, or any other fiat currency pegged to the dollar right now, we can basically trade that fiat currency for real money, gold, silver, and cryptocurrency, and start doing business in this new economy, peer-to-peer, without the central control, without the intermediaries that suck value from our value exchange. That's unnecessary. We don't need banks. We really don't need banks. We can do business from one crypto wallet to another crypto wallet, or we can do business by transferring gold directly from one person to another person. The challenge is the resistance that the centralized economy, centralized finance has to losing all of this value to us here in this new economy. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? So we have to cooperate as opposed to compete with each other. It's all about cooperating from the bottom up as opposed to competing from the top down, which is what our world system has conditioned us to do. It gives financial incentive to competition and to selfish pursuit, right? And what we want to do is
instead of everyone trying to be successful together in the common goal. You mentioned slipstream. Another way of saying that, if you ever watch the Tour de France, they talk about the peloton, which is the whole entire group of people together.
Yes.
So it's all the bikes together, and they're all riding in the same. They all work together to.
Exactly.
It's one big lump. And that's where the peloton bike group came off of that. So it's the peloton. The peloton goes through, and they all get the same score, and they go through if they're all together.
There you
which
go.
is a kind of cool painting, a picture of the same thing. We're all in the same goal. The goal is to cross the finish line together, but they're all together as a large group.
Yep.
So riding that slipstream, riding that drafting, riding that momentum to a common goal. So my question is, where does like bartering come in then in that case? Is this wanting to avoid bartering time and goods in this new economy? Or are we sticking to gold and silver and crypto?
Well, bartering is basically what we do with gold and silver, and it's just a function of breaking down the unit of value to a point where it's convenient for everyone. Like if I barter a cow for, let's say, a bicycle, there's not an even exchange of value, and it's very, very cumbersome. The whole reason money exists is to break that barter system down into easily divisible units of value. And, that's really one of the characteristics of money. It has to be divisible. It has to be a unit of measure. It has to be fungible. It has to be a store of value. If you want to listen to Mike Maloney talk about the characteristics of real money, okay? And the one characteristic that gold has over the U.S. dollar, the dollar does not store value over a long period of time. Gold does. That makes gold money. And the distinction between real money and fake money is very important to understand, and it's very important to act upon while we can, because there will come a time when people will not be able to take their value out of dollars and put that value into something of intrinsic value, like gold or silver or cryptocurrency or land or water or food or guns or ammunition or something of value, something that can be bartered, right?
Yeah.
There is a barter system, but money makes the barter system more exact, more precise, more convenient, easier. It gives it a more exact unit of value exchange. That's the whole purpose of money, is to make barter very specific, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned Mike Maloney, but what I like to do, and a lot of friends, is introduce them to podcasts I think are awesome, or books that I think are worth time and reading. What books have you read on monetary policy and money, and maybe not boring books, something that would wake someone up?
Sure.
Some like the Bitcoin Standard I've read, but there are books on money that are good. I know you mentioned you were one of the authors in a book that recently is coming out or is out. Tell me a little bit about that. But what books do you recommend? What podcasts do you recommend on finance and money that are good things to wake people up and to encourage them?
Absolutely. The book, of course, The Definitive History of the Federal Reserve, is G. Edward Griffin's The Creature from Jekyll Island. That's a must-read for everyone. I think it should be required reading in schools, but of course that's not going to happen.
Never.
But Mike Maloney has an excellent YouTube channel with all kinds of monetary history content, and then you can go on YouTube and subscribe to the Redacted YouTube channel.
Can you send me these links?
Sure.
So I can put them in the show notes. Yeah.
Yep.
Redacted
Absolutely.
YouTube. Okay.
redacted YouTube channel, and there are several on there. And once you hit one, you'll probably find others in the suggested.
For sure.
Yeah, so those are good. I'm trying to think of some other ones.
If you send them to me, if you
I sure will
find them, I'll put them in the show notes, because it's one of those. A lot of times I'll find a channel that I find interesting, and then that opens another one. Like you said, you start going down a tunnel of learning.
And join as many of those as you can, and just be alerted to their new videos, and
subscribe to them, help them boost their channel if they're good people. Encourage them to grow. Tell me about your book. You'd mentioned you were in a group of people who help write a book together. And what is your channel? Is your chapter on Slipstream, or what's your chapter on?
My chapter is on Slipstream. And the title of my chapter is Leverage Your Way to Freedom with Slipstream. And it's interesting how I was invited to be a part of this book project because of the word leverage. I was describing Slipstream to the brother of this friend of mine I do business with. And when I was going through the acronym for Slipstream, servant leaders leveraging love with effective ecclesia economic action for the mission, that word leverage caught his ear, and he said, "Are you an author?" I was like, "No." He said, "You need to be a part of our book project, because the name of the book is Get Leveraged," And so every one of the 11 co-authors is writing some type of idea using leverage as the way to let's just say make the world a better place.
There you go.
Yep. And so my book fit in. I interviewed with the coordinating author, and we hit it off. He liked the idea. And so he invited me to write a chapter, between 1,200 and 2,000 words. And it was a process, trying to get it whittled down to where it was meaty and not repetitive and all that kind of stuff. But we got it done, and it should be out.
Good for you.
Yep.
Good, and I'll put a link to hopefully that in the show notes as well, so people can support local authors to try to make this world a better place, which is my goal and everything. What else have I not talked with you about? I'll put your contact info in the show notes as well, so people can find you and start following you. Love Coffee Hour, Paso City of Gold. I think you mentioned the goal is to have like a Love Coffee Hour, or is it Paso City Gold, that type of branch in various cities around?
I would love to see Houston City of Gold, New York City of Gold, Akron City of Gold, Los Angeles City of Gold, Denver City of Gold. I just think it's a great idea for some local influencer to spearhead real money commerce in their local area.
That's awesome.
And it can be, very unique to that metropolitan area or to that community. It doesn't have to be a big city. It can be in the country. It can be a county. It can be, any group of people that decide, hey, you know what? Let's exchange value, and let's exclude all of these elite control freaks, and let's do our own thing, right?
Sounds great.
So, it's all open to your imagination, your work ethic, whatever you feel inspired to do in order to make your community a better place, and in so doing make the world a better place. Go for it. That's what it's all about.
That's awesome. Do you speak Russian, Paruski? Or do you...
Немного.
Немного? I taught English in Moscow in the 90s, so I
really?
One of the public schools there. So I know some Russian. It's been a long time since I've been there, but it's fun to occasionally go say something to someone in Russian. I know they're Russian. They look at you like, who the world are you? Where'd you come from?
Yeah. Меня зовут Matt Sistrunk, и сегодня я хочу вам рассказать немного о моем самом любимом спорте – футбол. That's about, all I remember.
That's good.
A few words here and there.
You know German then more?
Oh, yeah.
You studied German and Russian. So German was the more...
I lived in Germany for 3 years, lived on the economy, so my German is a lot better than my Russian.
My son was teaching himself German. That was fun to watch. But I think he still is a little bit. He just wanted to learn another language, which is always good.
I need to learn Spanish. I've been living here in El Paso for 36 years. And
there's German speakers in El Paso as
right,
Spanish.
Exactly. I know a little bit of Spanish, and I am learning it slowly but surely, just almost by osmosis. But It's a beautiful language, and we just have wonderful people here that I want to connect with better. But they appreciate me trying.
Yeah, I believe that. A friend of mine grew up in San Antonio and was a business guy, and his dad said, you need to learn Spanish. And he goes, I'll learn it. And he said, no, you're going to learn Spanish. So he picked up the phone and called a friend who's a missionary in Mexico somewhere and said, hey, my son's coming to stay with you for a year. And just that was it. And like the next week he was in Mexico, and he was like, what? And he said it was one of those, he learned Spanish, and he came back, and you need it in San Antonio, you need it in El Paso too. And the truth matters, you need it all over Texas and other parts of the country. Spanish.
It really helps. It really
it's here.
Helps.
It does help.
Absolutely.
Está bien. What else are we going to talk about? And we'll do it again another time. I'm pretty sure we'll follow up. What else is on your heart these days?
I just want to keep this as simple as possible, because the simpler something is, the easier it is for people to embrace it and run with it and for it to duplicate. And I just want to really encourage people to go decentralized and pursue freedom and get away from central control that is basically economic tyranny. That's the main idea. And Slipstream is an idea that gives that movement a little bit of momentum, if you will. And so hopefully it catches on, and we can just kind of get the word around and see more and more people going decentralized finance as opposed to centralized finance.
Awesome. Matt, best of luck to you, brother, and I will look forward to seeing you in person one of these days. Until then, let's stay in touch. And,
I look forward to, Bert.
Let's make this world a better place together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it, Bert.
God bless. And please, anyone watching this episode, please share it with your friends. Send it around. It'd be nice to grow this podcast to try to reach more audience and interview interesting people like Matt and introduce my friends to other friends around this world. So y'all take care. Until next time. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.